Oh, howdy there, y'all. YAMAHSAKI here. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be doing some more stuff to the old car. So let's go check it out. So it's been a minute since I've been working on the old Oakland. I've been making some slow progress. Water keeps getting trapped on the tarp and it's weighing down all these bows. So I need to put in some 2x4s to support it. And I figured since I'm in here, I might as well clean it. And it's actually not in bad shape, at least on the floor, at least here in the back. It's actually in decent shape. Up here, I still got to clean it out, but it might be in decent shape. It's just, like I've been saying, when that cloth top went, all the interior went with it. And fast. Because there's nothing left. There's good bones to work from here, but there's not much left for interior. I don't even think I'm gonna keep the original seats. I'll put in some sort of bench seat and modify the bench seat to fit where the mounting holes go. And then I'll figure out something for the rear. I actually got the rear pad out. There's nothing really holding it on except these clips that kind of notch into place. I'm just gonna end up pitching this. Maybe I can put it somewhere. I don't know. But I got the rest of the parts out. Flywheel, some sort of bearing here. It's a roller bearing of some sort. Valve covers. Found another valve. I found the fuel bowl for the fuel filter. Amazingly, it's still in perfect shape. It needs cleaned, but there it is. So I have a spare small one and the original. How about that? I'm not even sure what the hell this thing is. It's probably to the car. It might be a spare part. I have no idea. Got a spring. We got, I don't know what that is. I have no idea. Flywheel. And we even have, I found this out, this is a spare rear axle for the differential. And the reason why, it's weird because this car does have reverse thread on the driver's side. And me and my brother-in-law were able to get this guy off because it was already loose. And I think it rattled loose once the outer rim ring fell off. It must have jarred something loose. But that is a tapered key fitting right there. And the brake drums that I got do fit. I tested it, but in order to get this wheel off, I had to grind the front of this axle. And it appears that this axle is regular thread. It's not reverse thread. Because if you lefty-loosey, you're actually lefty-tightying. If you're going righty-tighty, then you're going righty-loosey. It's because the wheels are turning forward, so you want the threads of the bolt to tighten as you keep rolling along. Now that extra spare axle looks to be in pretty darn good shape. It's a little rusty. Evapor rust will take care of that. But it does have a nut on the end of it as well. The only problem is it looks like it's a regular threaded axle, meaning it belongs on the other side of the car. So I won't be able to tell until I get that nut off. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and look at some other treasures I was able to find in the Oakland. It's not just extra parts. Well, if we're going to go in chronological order, the first thing I found just by going out and meandering in the old car was this Civil War bayonet. It was just lying on the floor in it. And amazingly, it fits my replica 1861 Springfield. Exactly. So this I believe is a genuine Civil War bayonet. Even has the vein running down the blade. That is amazing. I'm not going to touch it. It's a display piece. It's, yeah. So that was a really cool find. Another interesting artifact I found just so happens to be some very ancient barbed wire or razor wire. There's a good chunk of it hanging out over here that we can check out, but it's just a steel ribbon that's been twisted and contorted, but it's also on the end of them every so often, maybe about an inch, it's got these triangle sharp points. Crazy, crazy stuff. I would not want to run into that. Ouch. The last artifact, if you will, just so happens to be this very, very unique easy out fire extinguisher in a can for home, camp, and auto. And I don't know how it works, but you can see right in there, there's a little nozzle. It's telling you to do something with that nozzle, break it off or something. It's crazy. Carbon tetrachloride is what was in this stuff. I wonder if that's what rusted it out. Probably being in that car for probably 50 years is what rusted it out, but still a very cool piece. Okay, so it's been a couple of days, and I got the supports in. They're just sticking up on that piece of wood, keeping the roof nice and straight the best it can. Ended up primering that sheet metal panel right there just to prevent it from rusting, because it had a good amount of surface rust. So I went ahead and I took the grinder with the wire wheel, or the cup wheel, and I scraped it up a little bit, and then I just primed it just to keep it in good shape. For the front here, I managed to get all the crap out of it, and I got to the floorboard, and it was worse for wear. It was still in its original spot, you know, but I figured I'd take it out and see if I can get underneath and see if I can figure out how to get this damn front seat out, because I cannot seem to figure out how to get this front seat out. Amazingly, this thing has an adjuster on it so it can slide back and forth, which is, I'm sure it was a crazy feature for the time. But if any of you guys know how to get this seat off, please comment down below. It's kind of tricky. I just can't find any hardware or anything that's holding it down. I mean, it's on there. It's on there still after 94 years. But back to the floorboard, I took it out and I just traced it the best I could, and I cut out a separate piece, rough cut it, just so there's a floor in here for the time being. It's not sitting level at all. I think I still have to do a couple of fine cuts on the sides and everything, but right here would have been where the battery tray went. It was cut out, and then this piece of metal was just sitting there, so I'm not sure if that's an original piece or if it's just a piece of sheet metal that someone cut. Doesn't look very straight, so I'm going to assume that was a homemade part. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the original floorboard, what it looked like, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So here is the original floorboard, and this is what it would look like if you were sitting in the driver's seat. There's where your hand brake lever, your e-brake, and your shifter would be. I'm not sure how that is exactly shaped because there's a whole piece missing right there. And there's your battery cutout, but there is not much left of this thing. It's just falling apart, but there was still something there enough to make a pattern and rough cut out a piece to keep a floor in there at least. Since I pretty much got everything done on the interior that I can, I've been trying to work on these wheels. As you guys saw, I got the rear wheel off with my brother-in-law. Had to cut or slice the tip of that axle off to get that nut off. There wasn't many threads left on that nut, so I'm gonna have to find maybe one that's a little bit thinner, maybe a castle nut. Because I'm going to have to, since we cut that off, and I don't want to have to take the pumpkin off to get that axle out, I'm thinking we might just stick everything on, drill a hole, find a castle nut, and put a cotter pin, and I think it should hold just fine. So, kind of figured out the rear, so I figured I'd work on the fronts today. And I managed to get one off about the same way I did with the rear. I just took everything off and I started hammering the back of the brake drum with a hammer. And it slid right off. I think the whole reason why these are coming so easy is because of the grease that was covering everything. Once I got everything off, I pressure washed it and did a little cleaning because it was pretty grody in here. But there's your brake drum assembly on a 1930 Oakland, at least on the front. I got the wheel sitting over here, and there's two bearings. They're both tapered. You got a front bearing and a rear bearing for the front wheels. There's your front, and it would just slide on, and then you would have a piece that goes inside the bearing right there on the bottom there. That's to keep all those balls in place, because nothing's holding those in place. And then you would have a washer and your castle nut, and then your cotter pin. Now on the rear, it's a little more tricky. You have this piece that goes all the way on the back of your brake drum. I don't know if it's like a dust cover or a seal or whatever. Then you would have your bearing, and then you would have your bearing insert to keep those balls in place, but then you also need an outer one to keep the balls in place on the outside. And that's the one thing I'm having trouble with right now. I'll show you the difference because I have one of the red brake drums over there, the new ones. This piece right in here needs to get pushed out. You can kind of see where it's just sitting in there, and I'm not sure how you get it out. Been trying to hammer on it. I think I might have to clean it out, heat it up, and then press it out. So I'm not entirely sure, but I'll show you on the red one. You can clearly see that's where it belongs. It sits right in there, and it just sits in there and helps support that bearing. So I am not entirely sure how the hell I'm going to get that out. I think I may have to heat the outside of this brake drum right here to expand it and then try and punch that thing out, because I can't damage these parts because these are the only parts I have to use. But if you're ever wondering how you get these spokes off, well, here you go. They're just carriage bolts and nuts on the inside, so you actually have to take the wheel off to get to these nuts. So very interesting setup we have going on here. I think I might try and work on the other side here soon. Now that I have an idea of what I'm working with, it shouldn't be too hard. It's this rear one that's given me a little bit of fright, because it wasn't loose like the other one. And I hope I don't have to apply 40 tons of pressure to get that dang thing off, because oh boy. In other news though, one thing I was able to accomplish the other day is I finally got one of the wheels on the rim. Completely, fully on the rim. She's on there now. You can see how that ring goes around. You got to get that ring in there. You see, the way I did this is I set everything up. I slid the tire on with the tube a tiny bit aired up. Then you have a band that you need to put on in there. And my band was too small to fit inside the tire, so I just set it on the actual rim itself and had to line up the hole. I slid it down, I got the valve through, and then once I got it down, I had my brother-in-law help me kind of press this tire down while we got this ring started. And you have to kind of just get it pressed down in there, in that slot. And it was really tricky right at the end here, and I think the reason why they have these little spots here is to help you get that ring on. We had to pry it out to get it kind of to slot in place. So these tires are rated, where did I see that? At 32 psi. I currently have 20 because I wasn't sure how this ring was going to react, but I just have one of those little Ryobi hand pumps, so I think it filled it up just slowly enough to where nothing had too much stress put on it. I went ahead and I wrapped some engine lifting chains around through in the spokes to have as a precaution if this ring were to just try and go pop out. But everything went well. I have the other 3 on order. I just got that box right there, and that's got my other 3 tubes and my other 3 bands. So I just have to wait for those, pop these bad boys, pop the rest of them on the rims, and then get the old ones off, put these new ones on, and we're going to have some new wheels on that thing here shortly. Well, it might just be a wee bit longer until I can officially get those wheels on that thing. Specifically because of the front wheels. And don't mind this, I'm trying to build a table or a rifle stand or something out of the old wheels because I'm not going to be using them anytime soon. Anyway, the reason why I can't put the brake drums on the front is because of these bearing races, these inner or outer bearing races. And this one came out of this side here on the original spoke wheel. It would go in like that, and you'd hammer it out, or hammer it in, or hammer it out. And they've got these little cutout slots that you can get a piece of metal on the lip of these races and punch them out. Made it really easy to get them out. So they really thought ahead when they were building this car back in the day. You know, if someone needed to work on it, they just made it easy for them. But these bearing races that came out of the original wood spokes here do not fit the wire spokes, and I'll show you. This is the outer bearing race on the front bearing on the front wheel brake drum. This one came out of the wood spokes, and it fits perfectly in those, but when I try and put it in these wire wheel ones, they're too big. They are too big. And as I was telling you, they made these little slots right there so you can get a punch and punch them in or punch them out. And this would have been the one on the front bearing, the outermost bearing, and it doesn't fit. So I've contacted the feller who sold me these wheels and brake drums to see if he might have the bearings and the races that I need. I also contacted Wayne. He gave me some advice. He did tell me that the bearing races and the bearings between the wood spokes and the wire wheel ones are completely different. They are sized differently. So that is an issue. I do believe the fronts, though, or the rears, they will bolt on just fine. I kind of snugged up one of these guys on the shaft on the rear end, and it seems like it'll fit, so I'm not worried about the rears, but it's just very unfortunate that those bearing races don't fit. And here is all the bearing stuff. Got all the bearings, even that back plate that goes on the back. I'm not sure if that'll work for these or not. Probably not. But there's all the bearing stuff. I just put it in a bag of grease to keep it all nice. Seems to be doing the trick. And there goes my engine hone. We don't want to be doing that. We want to keep that puppy in nice shape because we need you. We need you, partner. So yeah, that's unfortunate, but hopefully I can find some bearings. That's like the last thing that is stopping me from putting these wheels on. I have gotten all 3 tires. Let's go check those out. The rest of the tires that I need for this setup. And here they are, all nice and shiny and brand new. They're the Excelsiors 4.75/5.0 by 19. They'll fit like a glove. So we'll get those little piggies on the rims and oink oink away. In other news, me and my brother-in-law were able to get the front seat out of this thing, the entire seat assembly. It's quite an interesting way that they mounted this. I had to contact Wayne also on how to get this dang thing out of here. And the way it works is you got your main sills right there. You got all these other wood panels. We'll get into that in a minute. But right here, right there, and what used to be right here, and maybe right there, I don't know. There used to be just holes going through that wood, and on the bottom, I'll have to show you on the seat because it also involves the seat. On the bottom they had just 2 pieces of plate, and they screwed that to the bottom of this board, or the bottom of the sill. No, here's the sill, bottom of this board right here, and then they ran a bolt through, and that had threads. That plate on the bottom had threads, and that is how you bolted your front seat up in this thing. So we kind of had to end up prying it because 94 years of rust had completely inhibited the ability to unthread them. So as you can see, this sill board here on the passenger side is, well, non-existent anymore. However, on the other side, it doesn't look that bad. There might still be enough material there to make a pattern and just mirror it and put it on this side. So, but this iron's still good in here. It's pretty rusty, but you know what? A little bit of sanding or a little bit of wire wheeling, prime it, just like I did the back there, and it'll be just fine. Hell, look at that. That's 94 years old. My brother-in-law was saying that this thing held up a lot better than some modern car floorboards do. It's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. But, yeah. That's pretty much it for what I can do on the interior officially. I could try and get that rear pad out, but I don't want to do that. I'll have to show you the condition of the springs. The bottom spring to the back seat is pretty screwed up, and the back part of the front seat is pretty screwed up, but the bottom part of the front seat is actually in decent shape, so let's go check that out. Here's the front seat, and it's actually a very unique piece. It's in really good shape for the fact that you know, it was left out in the elements for years. The whole thing's made of a wood frame. You got one plank, another plank, another plank, and another plank there, and that makes up the bottom. And then they've got these pieces here, and this is how you would adjust your seat. This weird contraption here. I'm not sure how they went about it, but you got this bolt here, and it would maybe move these arms back and forth, which these are your mounting plates right here. The other one fell off, and I have it in the garage, but this one's still on where it needs to be. And it looks like that arm just plugs in there, and it moves it up and down. But it also consists of these giant steel panels on the front, and on the back here you got more wood. I really want to know how they did this here. Look at this. This looks like it's all steam bent wood right here, and then they just kind of clipped it in with these little teeth. Crazy engineering. Got some more hardware. So yeah, that's the front seat frame, I guess you could call it. Really good shape, actually. If I take it apart, maybe reinforce the wood a little bit, paint it, glue it back together and all that, I bet it'll hold up just fine. So that I'm actually pretty happy about. And I always thought this ashtray was cool. Figured out how you take it out. You just kind of lift up, and it has these little grooves. So there's your ashtray. It's a pretty unique little thing there. So here is the rear, or the bottom part of the spring assembly. It's actually in fairly good shape. All the springs look like they're still holding to an extent. But I keep finding out, I'm not sure if somebody reupholstered this thing before, but I keep finding things like this spring here is being held down by a tie that's tied to the frame piece right here. And I have no idea why. Let's see if I can get a better picture there for you guys. Right there. It's holding that spring down. It's not level with all the other ones. So I have no idea why that would be like that. Or maybe... I see, it's a hook. It's supposed to hook to this other spring here, like all of these. I see. It's all starting to make sense now. Just have to look at it a different way. To show you guys real quick, here is the rest of the seat assembly. That bottom piece right there is the bottom part of the rear seat, and then that is the back part of the front seat. Both in pretty sad shape, unfortunately. And that part right there, that wood piece, is the bottom framework of the spring assembly of the bottom part of the front seat. Man, there's a lot of terminology here. So we got the other side off. Now we're going to see if we can get this side off. Shouldn't be any harder than the other one. It doesn't have reverse thread. And I'm hoping there's enough grease to where it just pops right off. So let's check it out. There you go, guys. Simple as that. Pop the other one right off. Took no time at all. Now I'm sure there's a good amount of you out there that are probably wondering if it's even possible that this old car can get back on the road. Because I know for a fact there's probably 50% of you out there that are saying, yeah, keep going, this is pretty cool. And the other 50% is like, well, this is really a waste of time. Probably isn't going to happen. So what we're going to go do is we're going to take a little bit more of a closer look at some of the finer problems that this car has and what it's going to need to get back into decent shape. But as for my 2 cents, I totally think this car can get back on the road. I think it's just going to be a matter of which direction I take. I really want to get that old engine functioning, or at least try to. If that falls through, I want to see if I can stick a Yanmar 3-cylinder diesel engine in it. Which is exactly what you would find in your John Deere 1 Series or your Kubotas or whatever else they stick those things in. Who knows, maybe it'll be a completely different engine that I decide to put in it if I can't get the original going. It'd have to be a little bit low power or not too torquey, you know, because I'd like to keep the original drivetrain and mate the engine to the original drivetrain. I think that would be cool. Because this thing was supposedly able to travel 75 miles an hour, cruise along. So the drivetrain, as long as the engine's not too powerful, I bet it would hold up. It's American iron. You guys have already seen the inside for quite a while now, but like I said, we're going to go over, take a finer look at this pretty old girl and see how tedious this is gonna be. Most of the sheet metal on this old thing is actually in fairly decent shape. Still got the original bumper. It's a little loose where it's mounted, but a lot of this stuff is frozen shut, and I'm gonna have to torch every single piece of hardware on this thing to probably get it off. But you know, heat is a very good tool in this situation. The gas tank looks solid. It's underneath this shield here. We'll actually get up underneath the car and I'll kind of show you how good a condition it is underneath. But the shield here is in good condition. The caps here, missing the seal of course, but that's fine. I kind of yanked off the spare tire when I was pulling it backwards, but I didn't hurt a damn thing on this. It's still in perfect shape. It's when you get kind of off onto the sides that things become more apparent. Like there's one spot back here. Look at that. There is wood down in there and nails. So this whole section between here and here, they're two different pieces, which, ugh. Wonder how hard that's going to be to line up. I don't see, the problem I'm finding out is a lot of this trim stuff here, like in some spots, is nailed on. And I don't know how you nail it back on without hurting the metal. But anyway, like I said, it's more apparent when you get to the sides here. These fenders in the rear are kind of beat up. There's a little kink right there. And this whole brace for the running board, you got 3 of them, is bent back. And then it's hammered, it's squashed the very tip of the fender here. And all of these braces need to be heated up and bent back with a wrench and a hammer. This one included, as well as this one. And the fenders, the front fenders on each side are beat up right here. So that would require a little hammering and welding, but this is some thick steel. It would take that weld just fine. Got some cracks. Weld those up. I'm not even going to grind them down. I'm just going to weld them up and keep them as is, because if we go to this other side and lift this tarp up here, there's some more cracks and there's some previous welds to fix the fender, and it just adds a whole bunch of character. There's a crack there. There's a hole. Another crack. Coming down here. Really beat up here. But hammer it flat, weld her up, should be good. There's a previous repair that someone tried to do. Once again, all the braces are kind of bent up. This big old crack running right here on the rear. And this rear fender here is the one that's beat up the most. Big old dent right there, but it's a good thing about pieces being round. So if you take a round hammer, you can usually get it back to looking fairly nice. Kinked right here, starting to crack. It's twisting the entire thing this way. In fact, there you go. I didn't notice this at all. If you look underneath here, it's fairly clean. You know, still has the original hardware running up. There's a nut or a bolt, maybe even a wood screw. I don't know what it's screwing into, but light surface rust. The springs look all right. They look pretty good. There's a daddy long leg hanging out right there. Nice big old gash right here. You can see where the sills are and where the other pieces of the wood structure is. Some of that's folded back, but I think this, well, the fender's right here. So then this would be the main body panel right here on the rear. So yeah, I can hammer that back. I don't know, might be missing a piece there. I don't know. Here's underneath one of the front fenders. I don't know what's going on back here, but it's solid metal. Solid metal underneath here. To show that right here on the passenger side fender, this whole piece where it's rolled over right here, is cracking all along the bottom here. I doubt that's repairable. Maybe it is, I don't know. If not, I'll cut it off, weld that, try and make it pretty, and just roll along with it. The skirts look like they're in good shape, the doors aren't dented up, the firewall looks clean, the corners of the roof here are really nice. It's not a lot of rust on the inside. So now, let's look underneath this girl. Okay, laying on my belly. So, we can get a little bit of a glimpse of what's going on under here. There's your rear axle. Looks like it's got a leak at the front seal there, to be expected. Here's your drive shaft. Can I get underneath here more? You can see some of the body. It's rusted, but it ain't bad. If we keep going along, there's your drive shaft. Got some wood paneling that makes up the floor. Here's the muffler. Big old dent right there, and I did that with the jack because I thought it would be a good idea to jack this thing up on it. And that was due to the fact that it was so low to the ground when those spokes broke, I could not get the jack underneath here to get these blocks up. It's looking pretty good under here. It looks like, I don't know what that big bar is. I think that operates all your brake linkages and everything like that. At least I would think. Looks like it. A lot of grease right there. A nice brace right here. It's looking okay. There's your transmission. The bell housing. So honestly, it's looking pretty good underneath here. It really is. Then again, it just hasn't moved for 50, 60 years. And then I moved it a couple other times and it's just sat around, so it's not getting snow or anything on it, and I think that's what saved it. Also in a deserty climate area in the summer where I'm at. So yeah, honestly, the car itself is very restorable. It needs wood, it needs a little bit of metal work, and aside from that, the whole frame and the drivetrain is looking solid as hell. It's just the engine that's the issue. I want to try and get that old bird up and going, but I don't know if it can. So if any of you professionals out there that have worked on engines like this for I don't know how many years, give me a holler. I could appreciate the help, because it's just, there's 3 bad cylinders and then that one deck for the head. It's kind of messed up. And I don't know, maybe I've heard people have used JB Weld to kind of patch up the surfaces if they're a little rough. And you know what? That might work, because it only needs 5-to-1 compression. We will just have to see. But in the meantime, here is one of the outer rings from the wood spoke artillery wheels. I decided to take the fronts apart and at least get the tires off. I got the tire off this one just to see how this flipping thing goes together. And well, let's go over here to the rear wheel. We'll give you a better idea. So what you got, you've got your hub and your brake drum right here, and they're squishing on these wood spokes, which are going to this outer ring. And then you've got these 4 bolt and specialized hardware clamps holding this outer rim onto everything else. Now when I first yanked this thing off, I thought nothing of it. I thought that outer ring was just a piece to keep the tire on. I was wrong. So here is the spare. And it also has that weird doohickey right there. It's just an outer ring with a complete split all the way through it, and it's got a couple of janky little pieces of hardware. Same goes for this one. This is the one that fell off of the spokes, and it still has that outer ring or inner ring on it with those clamps. There's a rare find right there. That is a spoke shim, so you can once you start getting those spokes a little bit loose, you just pop one of those puppies in there and you're good to go. Simpler times. Anyway, just like the spare, as well as that other one, it too has this janky hardware. And the only thing I can think of that me and my brother-in-law were thinking on it is that there was a tool that would kind of pull it together so you could get the tire on easier, and then somehow it lines up and you put everything together, and then magic. Here's the bad one even. Right where all that hardware is where it rusted out. Right at that split point. So honestly, I'm at a loss on how these old wood spokes go together. So if any of you have any information, you know where to go. You know where to go. Well, with that all being done and said, I think that's going to do it for this video, guys. So I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment for more content. And YAMAHSAKI out. We'll see y'all later.